There'll be a lot of people who have a lot of faith in individual police officers, and when we see police officers, rushing into, take on, terrorists and the like, and the wonderful work they do, people have got a lot of faith in the police. But I think people have lost faith in the institution of the police, because they feel, well, a lot of people feel they're not on our side anymore. What do we do to deal with that?
Yes, well, I would say that this effect has been worse and corrosive. I think it's been catastrophic in many regards, because I completely echo what you say in regards to police respect for tackling terrorists, for example, and then shooting them dead on occasion, which seems to have considerable public support and gratitude for that. But yes, when it comes down to those volume crimes, the ones that affect literally millions of us every year, that burglary, the car theft, the assault, the criminal damage, and nothing happens, you report it to the police, you merely get a crime report number, you don't see a police officer, a detective doesn't knock on your door or do any house-to-house inquiries, people's hearts sink because they want better. And in reality, they should be getting better.
Well, and this is the thing, I've just mentioned this before, but even in the cases that I've been involved in, or family members involved in, trying to get the police to even bother to investigate, and we say the clear-up rate is very low, and that a lot of people are pulling out of pursuing crimes. But I know why people are pulling out of pursuing crimes. It's because the police haven't bothered investigating. They haven't even looked for evidence, even when it's there. We spend billions in this country in total on all these CCTV cameras that are everywhere, infringing our liberty. On every single occasion when I've thought, well, that'll be useful for tracking someone down or identifying something, the police said, it's too fuzzy, it's not usable, they didn't keep the tape, or we haven't even asked for it, or they've deleted it because we didn't ask for it for a month after the incident. I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, what's the sodding point of the police if they're not going to bother to investigate? And the only cases that I've seen, I think of one incident I know of where actually the police just dealt with it immediately and really forcefully. Otherwise, even when provided with the evidence, have failed to investigate. No wonder people feel that they need to take the law into their own hands. And that's a real worry.
This is such a disheartening interview, Julia.
I'm sorry.
But because I hear what you say. I hear it from other members of the public. I know that there are crimes which back in my day, it was a long time ago, would be reported and regarded as serious crimes. And they are serious. If somebody has their house burgled, they feel so violated, not only by virtue of what they may have lost, but that sense of trespass, that uninvited burglar coming into your home, that some people don't recover from that for years and years, if at all. And of course it should be thoroughly investigated. Of course people should, the detective or the police officer should be knocking on doors to see if anybody saw anything and following it up and doing their level best to try and catch someone. But they're not. A decade of austerity, a decade of savage cuts to police budgets.
Is it just the money that I completely accept? We've had far too many cuts, but is it just the cuts, or is it also the priorities, not of the police officers on the ground, who I think are just very disheartened and disillusioned now, but the very political and politically correct boss class who seem to always have the resources to investigate a supposed hate crime on Twitter, but don't have the resources to investigate what I have actually heard a crime expert, so-called expert, referred to as a minor crime, burglary of someone's home.
Yeah, minor. I would take issue with anybody over that any day of the week. No, austerity cannot be ignored. The cuts, and frankly, Theresa May's apparent hatred of the police and the way she butchered it and brought it to its knees, simply cannot be ignored. That is very, very much a factor. But what you call the boss class, yes, those sort of senior police officers who have been over-promoted and really are in positions way, way beyond their experience, their understanding and their capabilities, that decide to prioritise other things because it appears important to them, certainly have to shoulder some blame here. Absolutely, without a doubt. And if you speak to the rank and file and you hear what they say like I do, they absolutely despair of some of those officers. Now, of course, violent crime is the big priority because we know we have a knife crime epidemic, we have a tide of teenage bloodshed flowing through our streets, and resources have been put towards trying to stem that. And when you have limited resources, if you throw a lot in one direction, then the other direction is merely going to be ignored.
The public has lost faith in policing. Matt Parrs, Her Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, he says the public has given up on the police solving crimes. He says officers have been rumbled for failing to investigate offences as serious as burglary and theft. We've now got the proportion of offences solved plummeting from 14%, which was pretty poor in 2015, down to just 7% last year. And he says that this is basically corroding the long-term relationship between the public and the police. What is this government going to do about those, frankly, obscene levels of clearing up of crime and the lack of faith that a lot of people now feel in the police?
Well, we've got to give more resources to the police. That's what we're doing. We made a manifesto commitment to hire 20,000 extra police officers. Those police officers are already being recruited, and more of them will be on our streets over the course of this year. We're also backing the police with more powers, supporting them, for example, with stop and search in some of our major cities. We're going to be taking action. You've seen some of the measures that we're bringing forward, for example, on offenders. We're going to be bringing forward emergency legislation to ensure that those individuals who've committed the most serious offences, terrorism offences, are not allowed back onto our streets too soon. But, we appreciate this as a serious issue, and that's why the Prime Minister's made it the absolute heart of this administration to tackle crime, back the police and get more police officers onto our streets so there's a visible police presence in every community in this country.
Let's talk about this with Chris Hobbs, who's a retired Metropolitan Police officer, joins us now. Good morning to you, Chris.
Yeah, hi, Julia.
Hi. It is very depressing, but I know this is true, and I know that when your average sort of law-abiding citizen, who's probably worst crime ever is sort of, speeding at 73 on the motorway, feels that the police aren't on their side, we've got a problem.
Yeah, I saw the headlines yesterday in the Times and the Telegraph last night, in fact in the early hours of this morning, and immediately went to the report and read the report. Now, the report isn't totally negative. In fact, it acknowledges the fact that police resources are diminishing and demand on the police is increasing.
Yes.
And what we hear all the time, don't we, time after time, police need to do more with domestic violence, human trafficking, sexual offences, burglaries, knife crime, county lining, road deaths, grooming gangs, etc., etc. The list is absolutely endless. The surveys that have been taken in terms of public satisfaction with the police or public trust in the police shows it's around 76%. So it's not as if the public are en masse losing faith. I think the public realise that the police have been cut to the bone. We are fourth from bottom, Julia, of the league in terms of police per population ratio in Europe, even when we get the 20,000 extra.
Really?
We go to sixth from bottom, even with Boris's promise, if that materialises, and we go back to the way we were in 2010.
That's a very, very telling figure. We've got more crimes of different natures, many of them historic, many of them online, very difficult, complicated, technical crimes to deal with. And we've got fewer resources and fewer police officers. And you think that's what it's down to. Is it only down to that, though? Because I've talked about this throughout the show. Lots of people who had personal experiences dealing with police officers have been very disillusioned about the lack of interest in bothering even to turn up to a burglary, investigate. Even, I say, when my situation where I've provided the evidence myself 3 times, the evidence was lost by the police. I did just feel there was a level of just sort of, we're just going to, give you a crime number and then go away.
I think that's right. I think people do get crime numbers if they're lucky. When I was a young PC and you were burgled, you would get probably as many as 4 visits to deal with your particular burglary, because then it was a high priority. At the moment, of course, other things are higher priorities, and you've got the police out on the streets rushing from pillar to post. And of course, when they do actually arrest someone for a crime, they then have to go into the huge bureaucracy of preparing case papers, of going through mobile phone records, of going through laptops. Forensics, the forensic system is shot to pieces. So you've had to wait months before you get forensic results back. Despite
the fact virtually 100,000 people or something are now studying forensics in university, but of course with no jobs to go to.
Well, that's right. You had the government privatising forensics, and now we've got issues with the privatised forensic laboratories not doing their jobs properly, basically.
But is there also a feeling among many police officers, and certainly police officers I've spoken to have said this, that they just feel like that the police chiefs, the people in charge who are setting the priorities, and they are not in tune with what the police officers on the ground want to do or what ordinary people prioritise. Again, hate crimes on Twitter and the like. We are very concerned about being safe on our streets. The moped riders, stealing mobile phones, people entering people's homes, violence. There is just a general feeling that perhaps the people in charge aren't perhaps in touch with what the rest of us think is the most important stuff.
It is very difficult because priorities change and priorities vary from force to force. You have got this issue with violent crime. So the Met have thrown, for example, a huge amount of resources at knife crime, at gangs, and at moped crime. Moped crime has been reduced dramatically. It still goes on. And the Met threw a lot of resources at that but if you throw resources at one sort of crime because the public are unhappy and it's grabbing headlines, then other sorts of crime gets neglected. As I said, that league table is very telling. If you really want police officers to solve more crimes, you need more police officers and you need the police staff to support them. And the police staff, of course, have gone in their thousands as well. So police have to do tasks that were originally done by civilian staff.
Absolutely.
So the whole thing is a mess.
Absolutely. I think we need to get root and branch reform there, really do. Well, let's talk about all of this with the chair of the Police Federation, who the trade union effectively for the police, John Apter, who joins us now. Good morning to you, John.
Good morning, Julia.
This is pretty damning, this report. And yes, there's no doubt at all there are issues in terms of funding and numbers of police. And we want to go through all of that. But what effect does a report like this have on police officers themselves? Because we do have policing by consent in this country. Most police officers don't carry guns. And there has been a general view, the police, they're here to protect us, to serve and protect us. And when we're told that, look, most of the public just don't trust the police to look after them anymore, what effect does that have on police officers and the rank and file?
It really hurts, Julia, because I represent, as you say, rank and file officers across England and Wales. So these will be the officers that the public will see the most. They'll be the response officers, the detectives, the neighbourhood officers. And police officers didn't join the police to do a bad job. They want to protect the public. And, I meet hundreds of officers and I go out and patrol with them. And they communicate with me all the time that they are as devastated as the public about not being able to give the service that they really want to. But this was predicted, this was expected, and this was warned about. And the Inspectorate, the HMIC have given this report, which is damning. And I think it's a shame that they don't highlight some of the reasons, the broader reasons why we're in this mess. Because it is a mess and the public are not getting the service that they rightly deserve. And the government, whilst they are saying some nice things and making some bold promises, they need to go much further.
Yeah, and this is the thing. We know there has been huge cuts at the Home Office, huge cuts in the police and numbers. And again, not just in police officers, but support staff as well. Yeah. However, and again, I've brought this up, my poor listener who may have been listening for some time will have heard this a number of times, but in my own personal experience dealing with police officers, I've got friends, very, very, very close friends who are, walking the beat police officers. So I know where they stand, a lot of these things. I have been singularly unimpressed with most of the dealings I've had with police officers who've had to handle cases that I've been involved with, whether it's threats or whether it's incident on public transport, a road rage incident. I was, by the way, victim, not the perpetrator. Just incredibly shoddy, I thought fairly incompetent at times, losing evidence 3 times, failure to actually investigate anything, failure to pursue anything, even when I produced an independent witness who had not been spoken to within weeks, a failure to actually, to check for the CCTV footage, even though I'd got the number of the person who had it, and I have to say, my big concern was, as a sharp-elbowed member of the middle classes, who's very well connected and who can, get a phone call to to the Home Secretary if she wants to. I was a little bit worried that if I'm getting service that bad, no one else is going to be getting good service either. In which case, is that a problem with individual officers, or is there now a culture of just sort of despair among officers?
Well, I think there is a sense of frustration and despair. I mean, obviously, if there's an incident where a member of the public's been really badly let down through incompetence, and there's mechanisms to deal with that. what I see, and I'm not going to defend the indefensible, but what I see, Julia, on a daily basis is a deep sense of frustration that officers are not able to do what they want to do. And it's also because of the demand. And, the HMIC, the Inspectorate, a couple of years ago, they were criticising the police for not dealing with vulnerability very well. So that then became a priority, and rightly so, dealing with online exploitation, dealing with the vulnerable, domestic violence and so on. We're actually in a better place there now, but that comes at a cost. Because if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. And it's all about, at 3 o'clock on a Saturday morning, when the 999 calls are coming in, and you literally, I think the public would be horrified, absolutely horrified, if they knew just how few police officers there were out there protecting their towns and cities. So when a call comes in, and a call taker, generally a member of staff, has to make that decision. What do I deploy to that job? Because if I deploy to that job, I can't deploy to that job. That's the reality. And then it's the demand. And officers are being told, if you can't find an offender or you can't deal with this swiftly, then we have to file it. And that's not giving the public the service that they expect.
And is there a big discrepancy between what ordinary rank and file officers, and even up to very senior ranks who actually are dealing with criminals on a daily basis, and the officers in charge, and perhaps their, not just motivations, their priorities? Because there's a lot of feeling from a lot of people that, police are very concerned about sort of historic crimes. And obviously we understand, needing to deal with historic sex abuse crimes. But again, millions of pounds being poured into that, where we've got crimes ongoing right now. But also online crime, particularly supposed, hate crimes, people sending a nasty tweet or two. Yeah, people shouldn't do it. I don't like it. Is it a priority over someone getting burgled or mugged in the street? I don't think it is.
No, and this is the problem. And what we will say, Julia, so you and I might think that, a burglary, on the face of it, is more of a priority than somebody getting some online abuse. But that person getting that online abuse, you don't know what else they've been through. And that might really be destructive and corrosive to them.
No, but I'm not talking about someone getting, hey, I get plenty of abuse online.
Likewise, me too.
I'm talking about someone just saying something about, I don't know, people are getting police turning up at the door when they've just made a comment, a general comment into the ether. They're not someone personally targeting someone. Yeah, that's a crime. I understand that. But that's not the same as, the number of supposed hate crimes that are being investigated, which, I'm sorry, someone giving someone a dirty look in the street is not what most people in this world consider to be a crime. Technically, under the law right now, it is.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Know what? I don't disagree with you. I think, first of all, there's a big problem with the 999 system is abused anyway, with things that are not genuine emergencies, but police are dragged into things that they shouldn't be dragged into. And that's across a whole range of things. And I think we've become society's punch bag. We are the service of last resort. And that's because of the cuts that we've faced, all public sector, over the last 10 years. And that's why, the government, certainly the previous two prime ministers, should be utterly ashamed of what they've allowed our police to become, and these sorts of reports to be on the front pages of our newspapers, because that's not what my colleagues want. That's not why they joined the job.
No, it is certainly my friends who are police officers, definitely not what they want. If you could, if the Home Secretary was listening right now, the Prime Minister listening, and you could change this, obviously you want those extra 20,000 police plus returned, and again, we've lost a lot of experience. So even new police officers, they're not going to be equivalent to those who we've lost. What else do you want? What else would make a change? Is it changes to the court system? Because I can understand a lot of police officers saying, what is the point in arresting people? They're not going to be taken to court or convicted anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not a simple answer, Julia, but yes, more officers, more support staff, given people sometimes forget about the staff who are very often behind the scenes, but critical part of policing, more officers, more infrastructure, but also a holistic view of the wider criminal justice system and policing, because at the moment the system is completely broken.